All right, everyone, we are live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. My camera at the moment being a little bit, having a little bit of a problem. Oh, God. Let's see if it readjusts. There we go. Me in all of my splendor and glory, along with my flappy collar that won't stay up. If anyone has any tips on how to stiffen this so that it sticks up like this, because I'm not great at leather care, please do DM me on Twitter, by the way. I would really appreciate that. We'll be talking about the Dublin Stabbings and the subsequent so-called hooligan far-right riots, of course. I did cover this in a one-off video, but it's kind of important because of the propaganda of the legacy media involved in the reporting on that case. So it'll be a twofer. And Eric Adams, by the way, proving my point that I made weeks ago when Eric Adams got raided by the FBI. Well, first his campaign manager, and then he did. I said that I felt that he was being targeted specifically for speaking out against the border crisis, the Biden border, the Swiss cheese border. Now there's a 1993 case where he's been Me Too'd for sexually assaulting someone. I have a feeling if you sat on it for that long, it's probably not coincidental that now is the time that you decided to go all in on Eric Adams. So liberal activist decides to sue Eric Adams and claim that he sexually assaulted her. We'll be talking about that. We've got new polling. Well, kind of, sort of new polling. Anyway, Trump is quickly rising. He is now within 0.2 of what I think is the magic number where he clinches, which is that in the general, within the primary, within general polling, if he hits 60 points, I think he's clinched. He's at 59.8 at the moment in the aggregate. I think he's probably going to clinch within a couple of weeks. I don't think that he's going to lose a single state. So we'll be talking about that as well. We've got the Israel-Hamas hostage deal. Good deal. Never should have had to been done. We've got the Kentucky train derailment. This was spoken of yesterday. Somebody tipped me off to it. I didn't know that it had happened. But we'll be talking about the Transport Secretary Buttigieg, or Buttigieg. He's really good at running trains, just not the kind that transport cargo. And also Gen Z voters. And so we've got lots to talk about. Just a second here. Is that tab even open? Just a second. Yeah, the tab's open. Okay, never mind. Anyway, we'll be having some fun. I know that I look like a Thalmor Justiciar again. If I can get this pinned up, and also you can't see it down here. I was going by a pillar which was outside the Jumbo a few days ago, and I didn't realize that it had fresh wet paint on it because there was no wet paint sign or any warning whatsoever. And so I slid up against it to go around another person, and now I've got white stains on my leather jacket down there, my fairly new, really nice leather jacket. So I'm going to have to use olive oil later and really hope that it's the right kind of paint that softens it up and I can scrub it off. So we'll also probably be ranting a little bit today. Of course, TGIF. It's Friday. I don't stream for the next 2 days. And today is actually the day I'm doing Thanksgiving. I've already made the cranberry sauce. And by the way, it came out light years better than any other that I've made. All I did was add a little bit of extra sugar and quite a bit of extra mace. And I like to put mace in that. I guess I'm like Townsend's on that one. And so the cranberry sauce is done. Liz is cooking the chicken because she makes better chicken than me unless it's Parthian chicken. And then also potatoes, carrots. You've got your you've got your squishy squash, of course, with real Vermont maple syrup in it. So that's going to be good. Yeah, Titus Flavius, white stains. I promise that it's only paint. By the way, I did shower like 20 minutes ago, so my hair is not greasy or fucked up. It's just that it's still wet. Fire down below. Eric Adams should run as a Republican. Endorse Trump. Run on a pro-police and anti-illegal immigration platform. He's probably going to get Me Too'd into the ground, though. That's the problem. Once one of these Me Too claims surfaces, usually there are more. Because any female that you've ever worked with before that, retroactively doesn't like you or has a political axe to grind will pile in. So he's probably fucked, actually. Eric Adams is probably fucked. I mean, he was raided by the FBI. Now he's got a civil case against him for sexual assault. I have a feeling that these two things are linked. I think there are two ways in which that could happen. One is opportunistic, the other is organized. We'll get into that, don't worry. Yeah. Limerick man. Dublin rioters were from working class, Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil, and Labour Party voters. Sinn Féin are Irish nationalist Marxist party who helps open the country doors and who calls everyone FR. Yeah, no, I think that the Dublin rioters were a broad cross-section of society tired of dealing with the bullshit of the globalistic government of Ireland. We're seeing that all around the world. Look at what happened in Argentina. Look at what happened here in the Netherlands the other day. Look at what's currently happening. We'll be talking about Trump polling in the United States. Look at what's happening in Britain. The reigning so-called conservative party, they're more of a liberal party than anything else, are going to be absolutely shit-canned. It looks like they're going to get absolutely crushed out of existence. Like, they'll be lucky if the Tories fucking survive. So, yeah. You can see the kitty. She looks very happy. This is how she looks every night, too. She lays right by my side and bed bullies me. Call it bed bullying. She literally, no matter where I'm sleeping at the time, I could be literally on the floor. So I've got a wide open space. She will come in and she will butt up against me. And at some point, she'll like shove herself underneath me for some reason. And then she like whines and complains about it. I'm like, what the fuck do you want from me? It's very, very cute. I like that a life form is so snuggly with me, but I mean, come on. I gotta sleep sometime. Yeah, you'd need a double king-sized bed in order to have enough room with this cat. Aldous Creets. That Kentucky derailment is one county for me. Need a clank of blessing. I think that you'll be fine. It was only brimstone, so it's not the most toxic substance, I think, but we'll talk about that. Mike the WAP 00. I like the username. I like your style, dude. Here's some money. The deep state will never let Trump win again. Polls mean nothing. I don't know that they're going to be able to stop him. I don't, because in 2016, at this point in the race in 2016, he was 4.5 points behind. Again, we'll talk about the polling. He's now more than 2 points ahead. If the metric has shifted that drastically, and it's literally a 15-point difference from 2020, I don't think there are enough ballot printers to go brr in order to stop him. I don't think that they can. It doesn't, we'll see what happens, but I'm optimistic. I refuse to be black-pilled. I know people say, well, he'll never be allowed to win again. Well, Millet just won. Maloney won. Geert Wilders won. Well, PVV anyway. We don't know if he'll be prime minister. Things are going in a much better direction politically right now than they were for a few years there. Anyway, we'll go into the first news story. Dublin riot cleanup begins after 5 stabbed outside school. Yeah, the rioters stab people, of course. Yeah, that's the insinuation of the article's title. This was, this is BBC. They're very, very upset about this. You had 5 people stabbed, including 4 minors, by an Algerian immigrant. Some people said Tunisian. They're next to each other. A North African immigrant, we'll just say that, who had been in Ireland for an extended period of time. And he stabbed a bunch of people. The irony is that a Brazilian immigrant was the one that stopped him. Yes, after he stabbed child number 5, a Brazilian immigrant on a moped decided to dismount, take off his helmet, and beat him half to death with it. I find this to be charming. I think that Ireland, you need more Brazilian immigrants, because apparently they will defend the children where you are not. I would like to point out that the Irish have spent decades now chanting, give Ireland back to the Irish, and yet you're now giving it to people from well outside of Europe. What the fuck is going on there, and why the fuck is it that you're allowing your police, your government, and your local legacy media to effectively lie to you and tell you bullshit about why this happened, how it happened? There are one of two things that happen. The original report was that it was a migrant, and it is. It's a North African migrant. And this individual attacked these people with terroristic motive. A few hours later, after people begin protesting, of course, and they start getting messy, supposedly just far-right hooligans, the only ones that care about children. Okay, well, then maybe the hooliganistic soccer fans are the ones that should be running your country. If nobody else cares, at least apparently they do. Then we get a follow-up saying, no. It had nothing to do with any animus or anything like that. He just went nuts. He had a psychotic break. He had a psychotic episode. Either the Irish authorities lied to you when they said that it was terroristic in nature, sparking a bunch of riots and then backtracked, which is bad enough, or they were telling the truth and then backtracked anyway once the rioting began because they care about diversity, DEI, basically more than the Irish general public, including a bunch of small children. Regardless, it is damning, absolutely damning, their messaging with regards to this issue. There's no other way to put it. The Irish government should really just fucking resign in totality. Why don't you get people in there that actually will run the show and do something positive for a change? Ireland is overwhelmingly Irish, which is good, actually. I have respect for the Irish people. But a lot of them have been chanting, give Ireland back to the Irish. And then it seems like the same groups that are like, fuck the people from England are also like, but hail immigration from literally anywhere else in the world. Like if somebody from Mozambique moves in, they're happy. If somebody from England were to move in next door, they'd have a big fucking problem and stick up their ass about it. And it's just like, why don't you grab some priorities there? I think that might be important. The messaging, though, that I see in all the legacy media articles, well, 90% of them, we won't be the legacy media and use blanket terms. We'll say most of them, the vast majority, are far-right rioters, including soccer hooligans, have decided to burn down Dublin because they hate migrants. I mean, I'm not joking. I'm not being hyperbolic here. That's basically the titles that I'm seeing. I can look this up right now and read out the titles, and I'm like, at first I was awestruck because I'm like, okay, a bunch of kids got stabbed. That's newsworthy. You should talk about it. And it's sad. A bunch of kids get stabbed by someone who's either psycho or maybe racially or ethnically or national origin related, has some sort of animus involved. It doesn't even matter, but you got to focus on the people that actually got hurt. Instead, they're focusing on who rioted, trying to say, well, a far-right crowd of hooligans that was whipped up by disinformation, which came out, by the way, from the Irish government and police in the first place. They don't mention that in those articles. Decided to go on a vandalism spree. Well, I mean, who cares? They didn't kill anyone, did they? They weren't stabbing people. Yeah, there were definitely injuries. It happens every time a fiery but mostly peaceful protest happens. I notice an enormous difference between the coverage of this and the coverage of like the Summer of Love riots years ago with George Floyd, et cetera, et cetera. That was fiery but mostly peaceful. It was justified. People are angry. They're trying to be peaceful. There are only a few lunatics in the crowd that are actually burning Wendy's down, even though it was more than a few of those lunatics. The looting is limited, billions of dollars worth, but that's limited. Meanwhile, people decide to get angry over a bunch of kids getting stabbed because their government can't get its shit straight. And now they're labeled far right. They're hooligans. They're fooled by disinfo, clearly Russian disinfo. That's the insinuation. And basically, Ireland will burn if we don't go further left and become more diverse and tolerant. I think that diversity and tolerance in Europe effectively is ending at this point. In fact, hell, I'm not a European. I was born in the United States. I don't speak fluent Dutch. I like bitterballen and I obey the law and I don't riot or do anything or stab school children. So I'm hoping that Geert Wilders will continue to welcome me in his country. But yeah, you've got people who have refused to assimilate and you're not even allowed to fucking talk about it in half the countries in Europe because of their anti-free speech laws. And the level of propaganda is just off the chain. Again, look up the Dublin Stabbings right now. Go to any news aggregator that you can find. Look up Dublin Stabbings. Go through 15, 20 articles and look at what they say. It is propaganda, absolutely A-grade sheer propaganda. Effectively, well, the far right has decided to mobilize because they hate people from outside of their country. Well, that's not true. And that's not even the newsworthy story. Yeah, there were riots in Dublin. They burned a bunch of police cars and stuff. If leftoids do this because they're pissed off about fossil fuel, you don't say shit about it. Mike the Watt, 0-0. I want him to win, though, and I hope you're right. I think that he will win. Beefy King, happy Thanksgiving. Yes, Thanksgiving a day late in this household with roast chicken. A roast chicken? Pork Sea Fish, BTV and Rutland represent. We live in Europe. Is anyone considering all these right-wing wins will result in the deep state using that to crack down? Oh, they will absolutely try. Alan Smithy, they should remember this anger for the 2025 election. People, unfortunately, have a very short attention span these days. In the era of YouTube shorts and TikTok and bullshit like that nobody should engage in. Matthew Hammond, our country is suddenly realizing they do not have to accept invasion. Sargon of Akkad on X says Nigel Farage is on a reality show, red-pilling normies. Yeah, I guess he is, although I don't have any further info about that. Docky Perky, good morning, clankers. Hope everyone had a good turkey day. Sticks, what should I cook when I run out of leftovers? You should definitely make the Hungarian peasant stew from Old World Feast. I made this the other day, and it is spectacular. I would recommend adding a little bit more caraway and paprika than the recipe suggests. Other than that, yeah, I like to modify. I like a little bit of extra herbs and spices. It's really, really great. Make a double batch. Make sure to get an iron pot for it, though. You're definitely going to want to use the cast iron for that particular goulash recipe. It was really great. Next news story. Fucking told you so. And I'm not the only one who did. Eric Adams is absolutely being targeted right now for political reasons. There are only two possibilities that explain the fact that shortly after he gets raided by the FBI, he gets accused of sexual assault in a case that dates to 1993. So we're talking, at this point, basically ancient history. You know, when you were young in the 90s, many of you, you know how you thought about the 70s or even like the late 60s as being ancient history? It's the same time difference, basically, like the fucking JFK era or something like that. Eric Adams is being accused of sexual assault. This comes less than a week after he's raided, and that comes only a couple of weeks after his campaign manager was raided. The idea is, in the raiding case, in the FBI's case, is that he was taking money, his campaign was taking money from the Turks, effectively. I believe it. I believe that he's guilty of that. What I pointed out was that differential enforcement exists. So, you know, a lot of other politicians in the same cycle did the same thing. You'd have the same evidence. But Biden decided to drop the hammer on one particular individual. Lo and behold, in another coincidental timing moment, it was only a few weeks after Eric Adams really hammered him with regards to the migrant crisis. Eric Adams is being dogpiled right now in New York City. He's the mayor there, of course, as well as the governor of New York. Chicago's having this problem, other cities as well, because of the invasion of hundreds of thousands of people that can no longer be cared for. There's too many of them. They had to beg Biden for billions of dollars. He tried to lowball him and say, well, come on, man, I'll give you $1.5 billion to New York and Chicago. And I can't remember. I think there was one other city on that list. I can't remember which one it was. And they turned it down. And Eric Adams and others came out live and told the American people, we're incapable of taking care of this crisis. It is Biden's fault. He has done nothing to address the issue. There is no legal addressing of the busing of migrants. There's no diplomatic arrangement with Mexico. There's been no attempt to fortify the border. We're fucked. New York City cannot take care of 200,000 additional people, all of which require government benefits. We don't have the means. Eric Adams came out and threw Joe Biden under the bus. A few weeks later is magically when his campaign manager gets raided by the FBI. A few weeks after that, he gets raided by the FBI. Less than a week later, he gets a Me Too claim against him. Fucking put two and two together. These are all linked. Now, that doesn't mean that this individual liberal so-called activist is working with the Biden admin. There are two explanations that can work here. The first is that that is the case, that the Biden administration wants to take Eric Adams down, do a hit job, mafia style, only politically and civically. And so they find somebody who worked with him years and years and years ago, who he had a tryst with, who he made out with, or something like that. And they say, okay, well, here's some money. Don't worry, we'll finance your case. You can drain him like a goddamn leech if you want to. We'll pay for your legal case. Fucking hammer him, because right now we're trying to hit him from every side. We believe you. By the way, they'll do the carrot before the stick. We believe you. We believe all women. Make sure to launch your case with a high-class lawyer. Don't worry. All expenses paid. Everything's perfectly fine. Yeah. There's a brown bag filled with Benji Greens out in your garage, by the way, right now. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so you get a Me Tooing that's been organized in order to try to destroy Eric Adams by forcing him to litigate in 2 or 3 cases at once. The other possibility is that this individual decided to launch the case because the former case existed. So, you've got a grievance against someone. He may or may not be guilty of sexual assault. It could just be this is somebody who doesn't like him anymore. She was rankled. She was rubbed the wrong way, literally or figuratively speaking, had regrettable sex with him, regrets making out with him. Now she's married and has kids or something like that, something along those lines. And she said, oh, I remember Eric. He's big in the news right now because he's been raided by the FBI. I remember old Eric. I fucking hate his guts. Oh, he's being attacked by the FBI. Now would be the perfect time to force him into a settlement because he's incapable of litigating the 2 cases at once. I'm going to go and get my payday. I'm going to go and get my $500,000 or something. Either of these would fit the situation. I'm not claiming that this is necessarily a fully organized attack. What I am claiming is that there is definitely no chance that the timing of this is coincidental with the FBI raid. Absolutely impossible. That sort of coincidence doesn't generally happen within human systems. Nature, coincidences happen all the time. Human systems, especially the legal system, no. Clearly, she waited until he was already having to bow under the pressure of the federal government. Again, that is organized centrally by Biden. I can tell you and read it like a fucking open book. It could be that it's opportunism to try to get a payday, basically force that case back out of the spotlight as quickly as possible to say, okay, you want 50 grand, here's 50 grand, go away, settle the case. Or it is part of an organized onslaught. It began when Eric Adams decided to say that the migrant problem was actually a problem. He started to sound like a fucking Republican now, didn't he, there for a while? And he decided to rail against the Biden administration, and all of a sudden he has all of these legal problems. It's almost like the Biden administration likes to use lawfare to try to suppress people that criticize it. But the normies won't understand that. They'll assume that this is coincidental, or they'll just assume, oh, Eric Adams is a really bad guy. He spent years raping and assaulting women and embezzling money and taking it from foreign countries and stuff because CNN told me so. And that's who the Biden administration is hoping to unleash on Eric Adams. The normies, the retards of society, people who are low info and just don't fucking get it. But I get it. And I think most of you get it. Do you really think this is coincidental? Can I please, if anybody watching this video thinks that the timing of this filing from 93 is coincidental to the FBI raiding going on and that all of it's coincidental to his immigration statements, please let me know. I would very much like to debate somebody on the topic at some point. Work out time zones probably, but come on. It's clearly linked. There's no there's way beyond the possibility of coincidence there. CCTV, fuck all about Ireland sticks. I actually want to visit Ireland sometime. I'm going to do some Irish cooking too. Soda bread is great as long as you get soup or stew to dunk it in, by the way. Jerry Hildenbrand, when will we see Sticks, Razorfist, and Sleazy P. Martini together? As of the last election, actually. Yeah, we had Razorfist aboard for the 22 election. We were all in the same call. Yeah. Georgiev, I used to work with you back, Dan Caster and Forklift back in 2016. I want to make contact. Huh. Some goofy stuff going on in the chat right now. Anyway, next news story. I know fewer people are watching today. I'm assuming that most people are like hungover from Thanksgiving, like literally and figuratively hungover probably at the moment. I'll be having my Thanksgiving today with the chicken. You can get a turkey in this country, but I'm not going to pay 100 euros for a bird that might not even fit in the oven. It's just not going to happen. I'd rather have chicken or even a bean ham or something like that. Anyway, we'll go to the next news story. We've got polling. Everybody. General election, GOP nomination, Dem nomination, Haley versus Biden. I noticed that the Haley fans are not talking about the latest Emerson poll. You remember in the last round of polling a few days ago how there was a slew of, I think it was Siena, and it showed that Haley led Biden by a larger margin than Trump. And this was posted all over the place because the electability thing for the second-rate candidates is a big thing. I noticed they're not talking about the Emerson poll showing in the general election, Haley v. Biden is a tie, whereas Trump v. Biden, he's +4. And if you add in Kennedy, West, and Stein, who are running, it's +6. Donald Trump is running away with it in national polling right now. He is tacking 5 or 6 points ahead of where he was conservatively in the 2016 election that he won. He's pacing almost 15 goddamn points ahead of where he was in 2020. This is going to be a completely different election than either of them. And it's going to be more messy because you've got the legalese and shit like that, number one. You've got totally different polling numbers, number two. And we're talking aggregates with a large number of polls being aggregated. We're not talking a one-off. We're just talking here about the singular Emerson poll. We've got in the nomination battle, Donald Trump is, in my opinion, within half a point of effectively clinching the nomination already. That is, before the voting even happens, I predicted, this is months ago, if he were to hit 60 points in the aggregate, so everyone else combined is 40, Donald Trump is 60, that there's no real way, even with a high differential, that Trump can lose Iowa. There's no real way he can lose any state. And indeed, it appears that he's effectively done that already. We'll see what happens in the next week or so of polling. I'd be surprised if he wasn't riding at 60, because the oldest polls that are being aggregated currently are the ones that have him lowest. It appears that he's risen up slightly from that, and he had already risen up slightly before in the last polling period. If that's indeed the case, Donald Trump will run the deck. He will win every state. There will be no chance for anybody else. There will be a couple people that have a handful of delegates, and that's that. What they're still hoping for is strong second place win, justify staying in as the anti-Trump candidate, try to consolidate the field, keep winning second place victories, gobble up as many delegates as possible, and hope that Donald Trump either croaks or is removed from that position by the RNC in a brokered convention. In the first case, they lose. In the second case, they lose. You've either got to go Trump or nothing at this point. I would point out that the margin by which Trump is leading is very, very similar to the margin that Biden is leading with in the Dem field. Biden is currently leading by a few extra points against a field that only includes 2 other people, one of which is a literal who the fuck are you, and the other one of which is a dedicated crystal-gazing Wiccan socialist. Donald Trump is managing to lead in a field in which, for some reason, Pence is still pulled for occasionally. I'm not sure why. In a 7-person field by a similar margin. And at least a couple of those people are technically viable. If Trump weren't there, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and possibly Christie to an extent would at least be considered conceivable candidates. Neither of the people that Biden is running against are conceivable candidates. You cannot conceive of a moment in which Marianne Williamson would be a viable presidential candidate. She just wouldn't. As far as Phillips, nobody knows who he is. I barely even know his name. So Biden is slightly ahead in a 2-person, well, technically 3-person field against 2 sub-also-rans, as opposed to Trump, who's fending off 6 different also-rans, a couple of which at least have name recognition. That does not look good for Joe Biden. Look at Joe Biden's approval. We've got new polling on that as well. It's starting to flatten, like he's no longer hemorrhaging support, but he's very, very close to his all-time low. Well, his all-time high as regards to disapproval anyway. And I talked the other day about how the numbers have come uncoupled. And this is very, very important. Disapproval and approval normally tack together very closely. When they begin to uncouple, you're looking at independent voters. When Biden's disapproval, therefore, rises a couple points higher than his approval has fallen in the same period, and those 2 numbers are no longer coupled fully together, it shows that independent voters that tend to support Democrats are beginning to abandon the party, at least insofar as the presidential election goes. Add this to the Gen Z polling that we're going to be talking about later in this stream. It's not looking good for the Democrats. If that trickles down ballot to more than 2 or 3 points, they're going to have real problems. I still favor them to take the House in the election, by the way. I think the Democrats will take the House. It'll be narrow, but they'll take it. I think they lose the Senate. And I think right now Donald Trump has a very, very good chance of being reelected. I think it would be difficult to imagine a scenario in which he has a stronger position. Indictment Gate didn't hurt him. In fact, it helped him. I don't think that when he's probably convicted of multiple felonies, it'll hurt him either. I know we had one poll that every DeSantis fan wanted to talk about. Well, Donald Trump loses 10 points of support nationally if he gets convicted of any of these felonies. I don't believe that. I see the polling is off the chain right now. I only trust the aggregate, and then only to an extent, because I've done this for a number of years. Beefy King. What's up with the Gen Z era that septum rings? The guys look fucking ridiculous. I don't know. I don't have any piercings. I don't really care if people get them. I just think, generally speaking, it's not a great idea. Tattoos as well. I'm not into those. I don't have any tattoos. But that's just my opinion. People should do with their bodies what they want if it's not harming anyone else. It's more like you get a bunch of piercings, you get shot full of iron and steel and shit. Going through airport security might be a little bit more difficult. I don't care if someone has a septum ring. It's just, I'm not going to get one. Go ahead. Next news story, the Israel-Hamas hostage deal. Innocents will be freed, but the terrorists get a chance to regroup. Now, I'm going to say something here. Some of you won't, by the way, agree with this. I support the hostage deal in spirit, generally speaking. The Biden admin did participate in the talks that led to a pause in shooting one another. Well, I mean, Israel's really ramping it up before the ceasefire probably takes effect later, although the other day it was supposed to and it didn't, and we're not exactly sure. But the hope is that there's a pause in fighting for a while, and then you have a prisoner exchange, basically. So a bunch of Israelis go back to Israel that were captured by Hamas. A bunch of individuals from Palestine that were captured by the IDF go back to Palestine. I don't have a problem with that. I wish the ceasefire were permanent and they just fucking stop being, stupid with one another myself. That's the good part. The bad part is that it never should have been necessary to begin with. There never should have been a socio-political situation in which this kind of fighting would need to break out in the first place. Again, bringing me back to U.S. foreign policy, which is so lopsidedly important within that general region, because the United States is effectively Israel's guarantor, of why I don't think that this would have happened if Trump had been reelected. Or Hong Kong, of course, reselected. I don't think it would have happened. I also don't think the invasion of Ukraine would have happened. I don't think the Chinese would be gunning after Taiwan as much either. I just don't think so, because I saw his presidency. I saw the results of his foreign policy. Now I see a different, well, not a presidency, but a stewardship under Biden. And I see the results of the stewardship of Joe Biden. It's night and day now, isn't it? On one hand, you get a bunch of wars and economic problems and shit like that. And on the other hand, you have relative peace. Things aren't perfect, but they're certainly, can you really argue that things weren't better in 2018 than they are now? We should be striving to slowly improve the lot of humankind over time and not have regression. We should be moving towards less war, less famines, less, dumb political corruption and intrigue and things like that. I'm just going to laugh at myself for even suggesting that one, especially since I'm talking about DC. But we should be attempting to improve people's lives over time. There's no legitimate reason, with the increase in technology, communication, and human awareness and interconnectedness, there's no reason why we should be backsliding. But the second that Joe gets so-called elected, all of a sudden a bunch of fucking wars break out. We get involved in them all, fund them all. And so there never should have been a hostage deal, because there never should have been hostages. That's the point that I try to make to liberal individuals. Like, oh, hail Joe Biden. He's going to take a victory lap on this. Well, I helped broker this deal. It brought a bunch of people home to Israel. All right. And released a shit ton of Hamas fighters in the same time. He won't mention that part. Why should there have had to be a deal? There shouldn't have been any fighting. Why should there be a war anywhere at the moment? Can't people fucking sort things out in a way other than shooting each other? Apparently, these retards don't know how to do that. You know, with competent leadership in the major polar powers of the world, you're capable of generally maintaining calm. But we don't have that right now. This popped off because Hamas got emboldened by the fact that the U.S. is currently run by a vegetable puppet. That's why it happened. Again, guarantee. They wouldn't have done that if Trump had been in there, because Trump wouldn't rattle swords. He would just slice them down immediately and say, well, sad, sucks for you. We warned you. Alan Smithy fires a flare into the air to call Sigil and Bonehead. Yeah, where are they? I see that Anton is there. By the way, again, for people who didn't see the other day, these are mugs available on Anton's USA and landofbiltong.com. You can go to the merch page there. We got some Styx Hexen goodies. And so I've got some matching mugs. Liz has one. I have one. And yeah, pretty cool. I have had coffee out of it a couple of times already, but I mainly keep it back here. You just use Liz's mug, and then I have one for decor as well. So, haha. It's very, very funny. Good stuff. Next news story. We have the Kentucky derailment. Kentucky train derailment causes chemical spill and forces evacuations. A train derailed and spilled chemicals in a remote part of eastern Kentucky on Wednesday, prompting officials to encourage residents of a small town to evacuate. Governor Andy Beshear said in a statement that local officials in Rockcastle County were encouraging residents of Livingston, with a population of about 200, to evacuate. At the very least, not too many people were impacted. So it's a little bit less bad than East Palestine, Ohio's derailment. In a news release, railroad operator CSX said the derailment occurred a little before 2:30 p.m. local time north of Livingston and involved at least 16 cars. 2 cars containing sulfur were breached and some of the sulfur caught fire, CSX said, indicating that sulfur dioxide gas was being released into the air. Now, there are things that are worse than sulfur dioxide. It's a pollutant, can be an irritant and so forth. This isn't going to sicken people, generally speaking. And of course, only 2 of the cars were breached. So as opposed to East Palestine, where they had like a shit ton of fucking slurry of chemicals and 10, 20 cars or something. So it's a little bit less bad, but it's still bad. I'm still wondering, why aren't the liberals addressing the elephant in the room, which is that supposedly Trump is responsible for all of these things happening. Because he was president, he relaxed the rail standards in the United States. And yet the Biden stewardship began years ago. Buttigieg is transportation secretary and has not really addressed these issues. If you think that regulation is the solution to this, why haven't you introduced the regulations? Oh, that's right. The Republican House won't let us. It's called negotiation, asshole. You are capable of working it into a budget deal. They're a bunch of neocons anyway. You can con them very easily. That's why they're called cons. You can trick them. It's instantaneously. Hide it in the bill, make it 1,000 pages long, and pull a Nancy Pelosi on them or something if you really think that rail regulations would stop this from happening. The reason why they didn't do that is because the regulations wouldn't stop this from happening. None of them have anything to do with the safety standards that would be required in order to prevent issues like this from arising. I don't even know why a state of emergency particularly was declared, other than maybe to free up federal funding. Because again, the sulfur will burn for a while and, the cloud of sulfur dioxide will go away and fuck off under a bus somewhere. It's not really the most dangerous thing in the world, to be clear, but it shouldn't be happening. Our rail system and this is from the administration, by the way, that wants to massively expand rail infrastructure. Yeah, our trains keep derailing all the time. Let's build more of them. Yeah, the rail system is all fucked up, and Trump helped fucked it up, and all these excuses that they make. Let's expand it. Let's throw more money at the situation. Trump did absolutely nothing in regards to the regulations that would matter with regards to these derailments. East Palestine, certainly here with Livingston, but that's still what's blamed, and it's inexplicable. Cam2425IA. I heard Sigil took a Thanksgiving dump on the wasted grave, and unfortunately for him, he doesn't have any lips. Ah. Ghost of Mike Halga. Styx is not part of the religious right, so I would think Styx would not be pro-Israel. Also, I think the ADL is against Styx. Yeah, the ADL has a problem with people who support free speech. I'm neither pro nor anti-Israel or Palestine. I don't have a strong opinion. I think that all civilians should be able to live their lives regardless of anything else and do what they want and not have to get shot at. Supposedly, this is extremism, according to both Palestine and Israel worshippers. So I don't know. I'm pro-America, mainly because I'm from the United States. Trip Boom. Sigil is still dumping on his grave. Bonehead is trying to dig himself out of a shitty mess. The Shadow Band. Glad to see you live. Thank you. Yeah, we got another news story here. This is an important one. We mentioned it briefly earlier. Now, take this with a grain of salt because it's from America's New Majority Project. So this poll is not fully scientific, just to be clear. But according to their preliminary count, Gen Z is now beginning to sour on Joe Biden. I mean, I can imagine he's 81. He hasn't done much of the stuff that they wanted him to do. He canceled Keystone, driving up oil prices. Yay. He gave very, very limited student loan debt forgiveness to very small numbers of qualifying individuals, literally none of which are in the Gen Z age range. In fact, I don't even think that any millennials would be able to take advantage of it either. I think the younger Gen Xers would be like the youngest demographic that would ever qualify for it. Basically, if you've made your payments for, what was it, fucking 15 years and never missed a payment, then you qualify for partial forgiveness. That was Joe Biden's run-up plan. It didn't help with Gen Z, though. How can a person who's 25 have been making 15 years of payments on their student loans? Maybe the one savant in the United States that was 10 when they went into college, I guess, is the only one that gets that forgiveness. I'm pretty sure they don't need it, though, because I'm pretty sure they're getting a 7-figure salary at that point. You have to be within certain income thresholds, etc. So that basically fell through. The student loan thing that the left talked about for the better part of a year, you notice they never talk about it anymore. Biden doesn't even brag about it anymore. I wonder why, because it didn't help with young voters. If young voters begin to flee the ranks of the Democrats, or at the very least they back off on Biden, there's one huge glaring problem for the Democrats, and that's that young voters disproportionately are the ones that knock on doors and do petitions and activism sort of stuff. The under 35 demographic specifically, under 25 especially, college kids, high schoolers, etc. They are disproportionately the ones who are going to be doing the activism. They're the ones that will volunteer for your campaign. They're the ones that will do that sort of brute work in order to get the word out that you exist, why to vote for you, etc. They're youthful. They've got more energy, blah, 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 blah. If the Democrats lose the youth vote, and I don't believe the actual totals here. I think that that's hyperbolic. But if they just suffer a loss of 5 or 6 points of the Gen Z voting bloc, again, college-age voters, high schoolers, etc., people around that age range, boy, oh boy, are they going to get slam-a-jammed. Because then you have the uprising of people like Scott Pressler, especially from the millennial generation, working for the other side. And they're doing a lot better than the older generation of Republicans have been doing. So, yeah, I think that I'll go through this a little bit. The cost of living remains the most important issue for Americans. Most of them. 44% of Americans pick the cost of living as one of their top 3 most important issues. From a list of 20 available choices, jobs and gun control were the next most important, the latter driven by 34% of Democrats. Yeah, gun control is an important issue, defeating it specifically. Since July, there has been a 6-point increase in voters picking national security and terrorism as one of their most important issues. If you pair it with the border, I can believe that metric. Otherwise, I think that might be a little bit wiggly. And the 4-point increase in voters picking government spending and debt. I'm assuming those are the latent libertarian voters. 72% of voters believe the country is on the wrong track. That's probably true. Although I would point out that even when times are good, a majority of voters tend to think that anyway. It doesn't really make a difference. This includes 89% of Republicans, 49% of Democrats, and 80% of independents. The differential there is staggering. The fact that the independents lean so much more towards the GOP opinion than the Dem opinion is the only metric, by the way, there that actually matters. That metric, by the way, in this poll, I believe. I think independent voters tilt heavily against the Dems on a number of issues. Certainly inflation, certainly the border, certainly crime, generally speaking, a number of different issues. 80% of America's new majority voters believe the country is on the wrong track. Yes, but that's your site, so nobody gives a shit. Just to be clear, that metric means absolutely nothing. This includes 53% of Gen Z voters, 58% disapproval overall. That's roughly in line with the aggregate. We'll accept the number. A group Biden won by over 30 points in 2020. One thing I would point out with regards to this, just because you disapprove of Joe Biden doesn't mean you don't vote for him. You can dislike Joe Biden, register in the poll that you dislike Joe Biden, and still vote for him because the alternative you think is worse. Gen Z, I think, will break for the Dems. I don't think Donald Trump is going to magically manage to make up a 30-point gap and win the Gen Z vote. I think it'll be a lot closer, though, than it was in 2020 and probably 2016. Although we're Gen Z, only the oldest Gen Zs could even vote in 2016, so that's sort of a non-issue. I think it'll be a lot closer. I think the older Gen Zers are very quickly souring on neoliberalism, sort of like I did as a millennial. Having voted Obama in 2008, mainly because I didn't want wars to continue and the economy was getting fucked in the ass, and Obama offered hope and change, and I don't really care about the hope, but I would have liked the change. Nothing did. That was the problem. Very quickly, by 2012, I had soured on the hope and change thing because it didn't work. Others were slower on the uptake with regards to that. But I am an example of a millennial who felt that they leaned more towards the liberal Democratic Party side of things, realized that that's not my political home. I don't really have a political home. I'm an independent voter, not a Republican, not a conservative, never will be, never have been. Tilt libertarian on some issues, although there's a lack of pragmatism sometimes, tilt populist GOP on others, side with the Dems on a couple of them, mostly when they overlap with the Libertarian Party. But I would support MAGA populism over the alternative in this election. And I definitely will. I will be voting for Donald Trump. Absolutely, 100%. My camera's fucked. Yet again. It has some problems. I wish that there was a native controller for the webcam in StreamYard. That would really make my day. But no. Alan Smithy, good morning from the grave. Woo, wasted bonehead. Blue DeGolier, hey Sticks, can we get a shout out for the indie TV series Hillbilly Horror Show, free on Tubi? Yes, you can. There you go. Congrats on your shout out. By the way, I'll probably go off line a little bit early here. Yeah, I think I'm going to go offline now. I already worked through the news, and I've got a shit ton of food prep to do. And anyway, fewer people are tuning in because, well, actually, no. Over on Rumble, a shit ton of people are tuning in. How is it skyrocketing to 3,200 people watching live? Normally, it's closer to like 2,200. Did I just get put on the front page on Rumble, everyone? I don't know. Meanwhile, it's dwarfing the YouTube count. Jesus Christ. And Derek B52, I shared a link. Yes, apparently I'm on the front page on Rumble. So hello, everyone on Rumble Land. You should subscribe to the channel. Also, there's a link in the description to my books blog where you can buy some good shit. Cynically Optimistic Critic, Clankers in Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm an authorized ADT security dealer. Follow and DM me on X at Hozu HomeSec if you're interested in a free home security system. Oh, there he is. King of Biltong. Good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping on your Biltong using code STICKS on www.landofbiltong.com and www.antonsusa.com. It's from the quartering. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone and enjoy. Nice. By the way, he should probably make a turkey biltong. I was thinking you should do venison as well, actually, Anton. The other day I thought of that. I'm like, yeah, you've got bison, you got like the Wagyu beef and stuff. You should try doing it with deer, maybe boar or something like that, like wild boar. Although that might be a health hazard. Give someone trichinosis, I guess. Maybe don't do the wild boar. Cam2425IA, no more super chats. Yes, please don't send any more, because even though apparently I got front paged over on Rumble, this is my day late Thanksgiving day, and the cranberry sauce is made, but I've got to prep the carrots, I got to prep the potatoes, I got to prep the squash. Liz, thankfully, is handling the chicken, because she's better at cooking chicken, unless it's fried or Parthian chicken. I cook excellent fried chicken, and I make fried fish that's better than anything you're going to get in a package. Joel Castillo, Roger, fellow battle droids, stay calm and clank on. And Trip Boom, clank, damn good shit here on Rumble. Yeah, I like being promoted by websites as opposed to algorithmically demoted by them, like YouTube likes to do. I still have a soft spot for YouTube. I've been on there for half of forever. Look at all the cat here. Jesus Christ. Been on there for half of forever, since 2007. Sort of made my mark on the world there. It is still a great jukebox, although the search engine, behind finding music is less than it used to be. But, I keep constantly getting demoted by the site, whereas Rumble and BitChute and sites like that promote my material. They'll put it on the front page. They'll talk about it on their Twitter, et cetera, and never get that from YouTube. Alan Smithy, buy Styx's book. I can attest it made me more virile. I can attest to that. I'm probably legally, I'm not allowed to make such a claim. Probably get me sued by the FEC or something. Moonlight Girl, many people have Friday off of work. That's why live numbers are up. Yeah, but it was like all of a sudden it was down lower, and then all of a sudden it started to climb a lot. Huh, interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go offline, cut up my potatoes and my carrots, and peel that squash and get everything ready. And then it's Thanksgiving go time. I'm a little bit on the hungry side. I actually kind of pigged out earlier and had a pizza roll and everything. And so now I need some chicken, roast chicken. That's about all. Peace out.